Hey there everybody, welcome to Tucktuk, Trinkets, and Terrain. My name is David, and for this week's video I decided to look at another one of my hobbies for inspiration, that being the card game Magic the Gathering. And I landed on making the Helvault, which is from the world of Innistrad, sort of classic horror-inspired world with like werewolves and zombies and vampires and that kind of thing. It's a super cool world that's lots of cool lore and theming, and the Helvault, specifically, is used by the Church of Avacyn in the world to imprison demons and devils and things like that, which sounds very Dungeons and Dragons to me, so I thought I would try and make something inspired by that. So, I hope you enjoy. To start this project off, I grabbed some offcuts of XPS foam that I had lying around. I just glued these together to give me the sort of general structure for the Helvault itself. Just used some PVA glue to glue all these together, and then grabbed a bit of chipboard to use as the base and glued some more chunks of XPS foam onto that to give me sort of a platform for the sort of cliff that the Helvault sits on. I then weighed everything down with some books so that it would be nice and flat. Once everything was dry, I used this cheap hot wire tool to start carving out the shape of the Helvault using a picture for reference, just trying to get the general shape at first. So with everything sort of carved up, I gave it some extra texture with the hot wire tool as well. This is kind of the shape that I ended up with. And then changed the tip of my hot wire tool to the straight one, and I wanted to make sort of a path leading up to the Helvault itself on my base here, so I'm just using that tool and sort of carving away a path for sort of minis to walk up, trying to get the angle right so that they could stand and not sort of fall over. I then took that same tool and ran it along the sides of the base here to give it some rocky texture, trying to emulate that cliff from the original card art. Just barely touching the sides here and letting the heat do the work for me. I then marked out where I wanted the Helvault to be glued on, and then just used the heat again to continue to shape the path up to the final position. Once I was satisfied with my general shape, I grabbed some sandpaper and just smoothed out all the hard edges that the hot wire tool created. This gives it a more worn look, like a bunch of people have walked up and down this, wearing down the road over time. But I noticed that I had some flex issues with the chipboard, so I just essentially spread them out and used some hot glue to secure it, made sure it was flat. This gave the whole thing some strength and also prevented some warping down the road. Now to fill in my gaps and add some extra texture, I'm going to use my joint compound and just push that into all the gaps, into the different pieces of XPS foam, and just kind of spread it out sort of randomly, and then just fill out some of the weird extra holes in the path that the hot wire tool created. I also coated the Helvault itself with this, again to fill in the gaps between the pieces of XPS foam. Once everything was dry, I didn't really like the texture overall, so I grabbed some sandpaper and went over the Helvault completely, and this is the difference that it made. I really like the sort of, kind of reminded me of like hammered metal in a way. Which I ended up liking a lot. And then hot glued both pieces together, and then base coated everything with my black paint and Mod Podge mixture like normal to protect the foam as well as the joint compound. But while I'm doing that, I just want to remind you to please subscribe if you're enjoying the video. I post videos every other Friday. Hit the like button, leave a comment of something that you think I could have done differently or better, or maybe a project that you'd like to see me try and tackle. And share this video with your friends if you think they'd enjoy it as well. I am very close to qualifying for the YouTube partnership program thing, so any little bit helps, and I really do appreciate it. Once the Mod Podge was dry, I started with my base colors. I'm going to use this platinum metallic on the Helvault itself. This, in the lore, is a silver shard of the moon, so I wanted to give it that metallic sheen. For the dirt around the path, I use this dark umber to give it a more earthy look. I then mixed this linen with a little bit of yellow for the path itself to differentiate it from the sort of dirt surrounding it. And then used my pewter gray on all of the cliff faces, just going with my standard rock color here. You can also see I mixed in a little bit of that lighter tan color on the dirt just to give it some more variation in the base color. I then used that same pewter gray and dry brushed over the Helvault itself to tone down the shininess of the metallic paint, which is kind of hard to see on camera, but you can see the difference here if I flip it over. It's very shiny on one side and more dull on the other. And then I use this Craft Smart gray on the stone, again just following my sort of standard painting scheme. I then use this brown as sort of a dry brush on all of the dirt to unify it and just give it some more highlight with all the texture from the joint compound. Once all that was dry, I washed all of the ground with a dark brown wash, and then used a black wash for the Helvault itself. I then went in with a paper towel and just mopped up some of the excess pooling that was going on from me applying a bit too much wash to areas. Once that was dry, you can see this is the result. I was actually really happy with this. I decided to not do any extra dry brushing like I would normally do, kind of going for a sort of toned down look, just try and fit the theme of the lore behind this, sort of dark and gloomy. And then grab some twigs and dried branches from outside and use these to make some sort of dead trees. And this isn't in the original art, but I thought it would be a cool little add-on for use in a Dungeons & Dragons game, make it a more complete piece. I also glued down some little extra bits here and there, like the trees had pieces broken off and things like that and had fallen on the ground. So I did want to apply some greenery as well, and you can see I started to paint on some PVA glue, but I figured I would do my sort of grass tufts first so that they wouldn't be glued on straight to the static grass later down the road. So I used these two different grass clumps that I picked up from my local game store and just sort of randomly placed these down. And then once I put down a whole bunch of those, I went back in with PVA glue and some static grass and just applied that basically all over the dirt, making sure not to hit the path and then leaving a couple of barren spots. I wanted to go with more of a dead grass sort of look, so I used this yellowish grass mostly, but I did mix in a few spots of green as well as this sort of brighter yellow one, just to give it a little more variation. And then again, just covered everything with this dry yellowish grass as sort of the main bulk of the color here. Once the glue was dry, I tapped off all of the excess and was actually very happy with the results. The little color patches of the bright yellow and green really gave it some nice variation, but still kept the dead vegetation look, which I was really happy with. You can see the grass clumps really stand out. Next up, I grabbed some clump foliage, just a little handful of mixed stuff, like yellow, orange, and a lighter green that I have, and just sort of sprinkled these on randomly as sort of bushes or other vegetation in the area. For one last detail, I wanted to add Avacyn's collar, which is the symbol of the church on Innistrad in the lore. So I just cut out a template and very poorly cut it out of some dollar store foam. I figured my poor attempts at cutting out my stencil could just be written off as some poor craftsmanship in the forging of this symbol. But I base coated that with some black and then hit it with sort of a dry brush of that platinum and glued that on, and this is the final result. Pretty simple piece, just a sort of generic monolith slash maybe a waypoint or something in Dungeons & Dragons, but I think I definitely got the Helvault vibe at the very least, using the original card art as inspiration. I hope you enjoyed the video. I do have a Instagram account if you want to check that out. I post in-progress pictures and other things that I've got going on, but not necessarily doing videos on. I also have an Etsy shop where you can get dungeon tiles and other accessories to go with those. If you want to check either of those out, links for those can be found in the description below. But more than anything, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope to see you next time.